I left in August, September, October, November, December. It was 26th of December when we flew out, after the helicopter was shut down. We wanted to leave before then, but we were stopped, so we left after on the 26th. We arrived. My son-in-law had a Kamaz truck. He was evacuating the wounded and so on. He took us there to Tqvarcheli. When we arrived, we could not even get on the helicopter. I had 3 of my sister's children with me and 1 of my own, my only son. And we could not get on board because so many people were already in there with their suitcases and tangerines. Yes, there were people who were taking tangerines in the suitcases, our own people from Mergula. They were dragging those huge Stalin-era suitcases with them to protect the tangerines. We didn't have room to stand, and they had them on board. So my sister sent off her 3 children, 2 boys and a girl. Thea was still very little. We made it on board, but there was nowhere to sit. It was not passenger craft. Everyone was standing and holding on to something. Then my sister's son, Tengiz Shanava, started crying, he's like that, and screaming that his mother had not made it into the helicopter. They had already closed the doors and the helicopter was starting up, and he starts screaming, attracting everyone's attention. He says, "Mom, you forgot my mom." Then he cried. "Driver, stop the car, driver." That's how he pronounced. The pilot, who was in the cockpit, which was separated from us by a little curtain, came out, switched off the engine and asked, "What's going on?" So he cried, "My mom is left behind." They opened the door again, and my sister got out of the trunk, I'll never forget this, and took off her earrings and said, "If anything happens to us, give them to little Thea from us, from her parents." The boy thought that his mom was getting in and cheered up, but when they shut the door again, he just started screaming and crying again for the whole flight. We were told that they would meet us in Teberda in Kabardino-Balkaria and put us in a bus. I kept saying that it was a real shame that things had somehow turned out so badly for us. But when we arrived, there was a lot of snow, and the children had almost no clothes on them. They were not dressed for the weather, no rubber boots, for instance. Their feet were freezing. We all got out of the helicopter, everyone else was met by someone. We were left alone, me, 4 children, and suitcases and the bags. Someone approached us. We were trying to see if anyone could give us a lift. They said, "No, come over here. We need to register you and send you off to Tqvarcheli." As we were sitting there and we smelled bread, sorry, yes, we smelled bread, and my sister's son said, "You see, before the war, we used to bake our own bread on a frying pan. We'd say we fry the bread instead of bake the bread. Then we would add butter and ajika. Children loved it. It's what they ate. And then I don't know what was going on in his head, something messed up in his brain, and he stood there and said, 'Auntie, it bells like smata. Not smells like butter, but bells like smata.' That's how he said it, and I asked, 'What tamazi?' I went over there to get some bread. We only had a little bit of money. Yes, I had a ring on my finger. I thought I'd go and sell the ring to buy them some bread, but luckily I bought the bread without having to sell the ring. I came back with some bread. They divided it into 4 parts and sat on our backs eating it. They ate it like it was cake. Then we were put in a bus and taken to the station. I don't know the name, but it was the railway station, so we sat there waiting and waiting. When someone approached, we would ask them, but they all answered, "We don't know." So I said I had to get to Ukraine. One woman told me, there are trains standing over there. They are going to Ukraine. I'm not sure, but I think they are carrying tangerines from Georgia. Well, I thought, if it's tangerines, then it's someone from around here. There are tangerines in Batumi too. I went over and called to see if anybody was there, but nobody came out. Then I saw a man standing who was obviously a car attendant. I said, hello, and he said, hello. I said, please take us on board. Where are you going? He said, to Ukraine. I asked, will you take us? He said, how can I take you? You know, two youngest children, Thea and Tango, they were 2 years apart. Then the older ones, my son and my nephew Tamazi, they were 10 and 9. The little ones were 6 and 4, no, 5 and 4, or something like that. The older ones were dragging along the bags full of food. Everyone had given us food. The whole village had put things in our bags. The bags were full of round flatbreads that were crumbling, but they didn't want to eat them after having the bread. So I said, go on, take us. He answered, looking at me oddly. Where are you from? I said, we're refugees from Abkhazia. He made a gesture and said, what? Weren't you all killed already? I started to cry. I answered, no, we were not killed. Then he said, no, there's no room. The carriages are completely full, he said. So having refused like that, he started to close up, and I shouted to my son, his name is Viadi. I shouted, Zviadi, Zviadi, calling to him, but because of the trains he could not hear. I said, stop running, stay where you are. They had been running towards me. The man opened the door and said, what were you shouting just now? I answered, I was calling my son. I don't get it, he said. What? Is he Georgian? He's my son, Zviadi, I said. He's Georgian, only we don't say Georgian where I am from. We say Mingrelian, I said. And those 3 are Abkhazian. Yes, he answered. And upon that he pulled the emergency stop lever, got out, and threw us and our stuff up on the end of platform of the carriage. And then he said, go ahead. The carriage had booths and narrow corridor, but it was impossible to pass it because everything was stacked with bags of tangerines. It turned out that the personnel had bought out the carriage and were selling the tangerines themselves. I have no idea where they were coming from or going to, but I knew the train was going to Kharkiv. So once we were in, I asked about the suitcases. He said, don't you worry, nobody's going to touch your suitcases. Everything's locked, even the doors between the carriages. So he led us through the corridors. We passed almost 2 carriages, and then he led us into the booth. There were 2 women there in the bunk beds up above, and I saw 2 men sitting on the beds below. He told the women to come down and let the children lie up there. So we put 2 of them on the bunk bed on one side and 2 on the other. He gave them some sausages and bread, told them to eat it. The kids wanted bread. I mean, we had roasted chicken and ducks, everything except for the bread. So they ate food lying on their bunk beds. They were all frozen, but thank goodness they warmed up again. Once we started moving, he came back as I was combing little Thea's hair. It was morning. She had long hair, so I was combing it, and he came in and said, what a beautiful hair. What's your name? She answered, Thea. He gave her 25 rubles as a present just for having that hair. And you? He asked. 10 geese. And how about you? Tamas. And yours Viadi. So how can you be Abkhazian when you all have Mingrelian or Georgian names? He joked. He said, I'll be right back. He came up to me and said, I'm leaving. I thought, how can he be leaving? Isn't he a car attendant? He brought a man with him who was a bit tipsy. And he says, Sasha, you'll get them to their destination and you won't take a single penny from them.